Oh, okay.
Okay, we are recording. My name's Kaylee.
I'm Brittany Stanley.
I'm Amanda Vansicle.
And I'm Amy Konchuk. All right. Oh, and I just lost it. Okay, sorry. We're good. Okay, so we just go through the questions, right?
Yep.
That's all I do. Okay. Um, so what were your impressions of the CRC article and the video by the United Nations? We'll go with that one.
Well,
I think
yeah,
go for it,
I mean,
Brittany.
sorry, if it's okay, I can go.
Let's go.
um, well, I thought the United Nations video was actually super persuasive. You know, they kind of tug on your heartstrings by showing all these pictures of like children who are in poverty or who are just in like these terrible circumstances, and it kind of pulls on your heartstrings because who doesn't want to be an advocate for people who can't advocate for themselves? Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I also think, you know, they did a good job kind of not really going into detail about what the actual CRC is, but kind of saying like the good things it does, but not actually about any of the rights that it takes away from parents. You know what I mean?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I
But
was
I
gonna say the same.
I do think it's like important though that there are like certain standards for children like around the world because they're so vulnerable that like I think there does need to be some kind of, you know, accountability for countries to set up certain programs for health and education, especially like in like countries that are so poor or that are like they have a lot of war and stuff. I don't know. I think I'm kind of like on the fence about it. I don't know about you guys. I can't really make up my mind yet. I just I don't know.
I
But
think there's aspects of it that are definitely good, and for other countries, they will protect the children, but I think it takes away a lot of the parental responsibility and rights. Like a parent, it basically says a parent doesn't have to care for a child because the state will if they're not. So I just felt like it takes away all the responsibility of the parents, and it takes away the rights of the parents. Like if the child doesn't want to go to church with them, you can't force them, which you shouldn't really force them
Yeah.
anyway, but you should be able to take
Mhm.
them to church with you. I don't, I wouldn't feel comfortable with my child going to some state appointed person to say, you don't have to go to church with your parents. Rather, you can do whatever you want. Let's look at this religion. Let's look at this religion. Like, I'd rather be the one to teach my children religion than some state person. And government shouldn't have any, like, our Constitution states that government shouldn't have any involvement in religion, and that violates it. But international law overrules all of our laws.
Yeah. Like I agree with both of you. Like the video, the CRC video, like you're like, oh my goodness, like we need to support this because you see they talk about like human trafficking and they talk about I think it mostly applies. It should I think mostly applies to other countries because there's
Yeah.
poverty and a lot more struggle, like kids not receiving an education and just abuse and being abandoned because of AIDS or things like that, and it's just like that. I could see why it's so beneficial. And I like what you said. I forgot your name. But your name's not showing on the thing. But when you mentioned what would you mention now? I forget. Um, anyways, I forgot now what I was gonna say about that. Sorry, it's been a long day. But but with the parental rights, when I watched that video, I know I'm going to the next question, but that was that was shocking to me because now I remember what I was going to say. The CRC video didn't mention things that like when I mentioned the parental rights video, it didn't say stuff about like the religious, what you were saying about not being able to take your kid to church, and that's something that needs to be practiced in the home, not with the government, not with someone else telling us what to do. And it really shocked me that case where they're saying the parents, their child was taken away from them because they wanted them to go to church.
Yeah.
So I hated that. I was like, seriously? Like now I watched the CRC video first and I was like, okay, what's wrong with this? Like, yeah, I'll support this. And then I watched the parental rights and I was like, okay, wait a second. So yeah, anyways.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, I was one of those people, okay, like, not to be devil's advocate, but I kind of think it's a really good thing. And even considering the parental rights, the thing that I thought about was, I mean, we teach our children since they're young, like, if we want them to be part of a religion, we teach them. And, like, I don't know, I just thought, do we have, like, that much lack of faith in our own children that they're not going to choose? I mean, I don't know. For me, I feel like they should have the right to choose. Once they're baptized when they're 8, it's them showing that they have, like, sufficient, like, development to be able to make choices between good and evil. Obviously, they still have to be guided. And I feel like the only children that are really going to fight that and, like, go to court over it are, like, teenagers. And once they're, like, teenagers, it's like, it doesn't do you any good to force them to go to church anyways. So, I don't know. I kind of think it's a good idea. When I was on my mission in France, we had so many issues with like the Arab nations, like whether they were Muslim or whatever religion they are. We had a lot of issues with, like, we could not at all teach their children because that is, like, completely against anything. And if they ever wanted to, like, convert, it was like their life was on the line. And so we actually weren't allowed to teach a lot of Arabs because of that. And it's really sad because we had a lot who wanted to convert, but just because of, like, family situations, they weren't able to. And so, I mean, I think, yes, it might take away parental rights, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes cases like the case with the parents who their kid got taken away, obviously their kid wasn't taken away just because of that. I feel like there's probably underlying circumstances that we don't know everything that happened, and maybe they were being overly, like, forceful or something to the child. I don't know. Personally, like, after reading through it, and even after reading through, like, the little parental thing, I actually thought it was still a good idea. And I know that's kind of playing devil's advocate, but
I'm kind of, I think it actually does a lot more good, honestly, than harm. Especially looking at a global perspective and not just the U.S. It has actually blessed a lot of people's lives with immunizations, protecting children with education, human trafficking. It has actually done so much good. You know what I mean? But there are still negatives to it. I don't know. These things that when you have something good, there's usually going to be bad with it too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Like, I'm not. Like, I totally agree with you, Amy. You've made some great points. So, and like, I'm not against anything that you said. You made really good points. So.
Yeah, and as something I was just thinking about that too is, like, yes, there's a lot of bad and a lot of good, but I feel like anything that you get passed through any government thing has good and bad to it.
Yeah.
And that honestly is, like, one of my biggest like things that deters me from, like, voting or something, because I get so confused. I'm like, well, there is a lot of good, but there's a whole lot of bad too. So it's kind of like, I don't know. That's just, I mean, I understand there's probably some negatives to it, but I don't know. Anyways, I can move on.
I think one thing to consider with that kind of got me was that the U.S. accepting or ratifying this law wouldn't help other countries. So the other countries that have already ratified it, they get all the benefits from it. The law protects them in that way. The U.S. doing it wouldn't help them any further. It would be, the laws would now be applied to the U.S. So that's something to kind of think about.
Yeah, I don't know if I quite understand that, because, I mean, the point of it isn't to help other countries. It's mostly to help our country and to make sure we have the right laws in place, correct? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, well, some people were for ratifying it because they thought that if everyone had the laws, it would help other countries that are more involved in, like, sex trafficking and all that other stuff, and that it wouldn't really, like, the U.S. already has most of these laws in place, just different wording, but the aspects that aren't in place would trump all our laws, whether our laws are for or against that law.
Yeah. Something too is, I know, sorry, I'm talking a lot. I actually really liked this topic this week, but it said, I don't remember where I was reading it, but it was saying that, like, if the country already has laws in place that are better, oh, I think it's on this little monkey thing. that they had. You know, the little animal.
Mhm.
Yeah, the animal thing. It was saying like if the country already has laws that are better than this, then they should go with those. So I don't know if it would change that many laws if we're already doing.
But our Constitution has it in place that international law trumps our law. So in other countries, they might not have a constitution in place that does that, but my understanding is our Constitution allows international law to trump our law, if that makes sense.
But if it's
Yeah.
the same law, if it's doing the same thing.
Yeah, but whatever it says, so our laws that say those things wouldn't be in place anymore, and this law would take over.
That's what they were explaining, at least in the parental video.
Yeah, I just looking at this UN thing, and obviously I don't know which one's more correct, an interview or or you know, each one is going to advocate for themselves.
Yep.
But this one was just saying, it says under Article 41, if the laws of your country provide better protection of your rights than the articles in the convention, those laws should apply. So it's saying that your laws should beat the international law if they're better. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's kind of confusing because I don't feel like you get the whole picture because each side pulls for their side, and you don't get like a complete picture of what it really is. And each side is really biased. Like the UN side wants it to pass, and the parental rights side doesn't want it to pass. So you get two extremes, but you don't get the middle ground where it's what it really is.
Yeah.
So, sorry, just out of curiosity, were you guys actually able to access like what the CRC says? Were you able to get to it? Okay.
No.
I got most of them, but I think that first one, what it says, that one didn't work.
And I think that's really bad on their website because I'm still kind of confused at what exactly it is because I haven't been able to read it. Do you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm still like.
I was gonna bring that up too. Like, there's others. I feel like there's something missing because I couldn't get anything open except for the last one.
Okay, same with me too.
I could only get like the made easy for children, whatever, the monkey page.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. That's the one I could open. So.
Yeah, I think I got most of them open. But like at first none of them were opening, and then I think I got a couple of them to open, but I don't know. I'd have to find it again. Anyways, I can move on.
Need to move on to that second question.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you are from or have ever lived in a country where the CRC has already been ratified, what are some positive and negative effects you have observed as a result? If you are from the U.S. or Somalia where the CRC has not been ratified, then research another country to document the positive and negative effects and relate how they could benefit or hurt your country with a future CRC ratification.
So I can go first. I just picked a random country, so I did Uganda. So just a little I guess, background information. It's like pretty war-torn between the government, and they have this. It's like a rebel party group called the LRA, and basically they're just trying to fight up against the government. And they're kind of a really bad group. They kidnap children to have them fight for them. They basically get them hooked on drugs and just send them out to kill people. So they have they have massive displacement of all these kids and just insecurity within the country. So once they ratified the CRC, it's actually benefited them a lot. The country has put a lot of money into fighting against AIDS and HIV. I'm just going to read off some of the stuff that they put. So they have 13.5 million children were immunized against measles. So that's awesome because it's extremely contagious. They have 3.7 million girls benefiting from, it's basically a girls' education program. They have 8,000 severely malnourished children were assisted with, it's kind of like a hybrid milk and energy biscuits. So it's more nutritional than regular milk and biscuits. And then 20,000 primary school kids and 12,000 preschool children were able to go to school. And then this is a huge one. They had 400,000 people that have now been able to have more access to clean water, and that's huge because that's going to prevent a lot of diseases. And then the last one was they had more than 5,000 children who were abducted by the LRA. And they were able to reunite them and kind of rehabilitate them back into their families and society. So the CRC has actually done amazing stuff for that country. Incredible stuff. So that was mine.
That's really cool.
I can go next. Mine was, I did Canada, and my internet hasn't really been working, so the first one I found I had to stick with because if I hit back, then I would lose connection and have to start over again. So the one I found, it talked about how a lot of the adoption agencies in Canada, their adoptions are private or secretive so that the adoptive parents don't have any connections with the birth parents, but one of the rights of the CRC is to know like your birth name and to know your, like they have a birthright, and so they changed all adoptions to be open adoptions so that the adoptive parents would know who the birth parents were, so that if the children ever asked or wanted to know that, they could know who their birth parents were and don't have to go through an extensive process of trying to figure out who their birth parents were. So I thought that was pretty cool that they had to do it that way, and hopefully it was for the better. I think it is because I mean all adoptees I think are curious about where they came from, but some parents want to be anonymous, so hopefully it didn't affect their willingness to put them up for adoption, if that makes sense. But I think overall it was a good change that they made for the children.
Thank you. Okay, just a second. Okay, just a second. All right, sorry. So I looked into a few, but one that stood out to me was Kenya. Hey, stop. And like it talked about a little bit about actually, because I was really, it shocks me that some countries do like human trafficking and things like that. That it talked a little bit about that and how it's been. Olivia, stop. Olivia, come here. Olivia, come here. I'm sorry. And pretty much, they've been stopping that and also giving them more of an education. Like a lot of people weren't, it wasn't available to them, so it was actually more enforced. So, I mean, that's mostly what I've got from that one. So, I had another one too. I'm trying to find it. But if you want to just share something else, sorry.
Well, yeah, I actually just looked at the first part of that question in preparing, so I didn't actually look up its place. So I have nothing to add, but
yeah, mine was really quick, so that's why I'm like, I didn't have a lot of information on it. That was the only thing. Like it just shocks me. Like some of the countries, we don't really. A lot of people don't really realize how great, lucky we are. So
yeah.
Uh-huh.
It just shocks me, like the human trafficking or education, even education, something that is available to us, to everybody here. It's like it's not for a lot of girls aren't. It's not available to them. So that. I read a little bit more about that, but I didn't really have this specific country, so I just kind of looked around and saw what was not available to a lot of people. Oh, buddy.
Yeah,
like
I do think that. I do think that's kind of, I don't know, something we take for granted here is the rights that we have. The fact that we have a lot of people who advocate for us, in the United States, and I don't know, there's a lot of people in some of those other countries, which it kind of surprised me what countries accepted. Some of them, such as Afghanistan. I mean, obviously I'm not super rehearsed in their laws and everything, but I feel like they're probably pretty strict. And I thought parental rights was super important to them. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I read a little bit on Afghanistan, and they like I said, the education wasn't available to girls. I think a lot of people already know about that. But they also have kids going into war, things that's
Yeah.
pretty scary. Something that they don't have a choice in, I don't know, life or death situation, and it's that they're forced to go into war. So
One thing that I read was that, and I think it was actually in her video too, is that also when a country kind of ratifies this into whatever declaration that they have, you get more funding from like the World Food Program, the World Health Organization. You get more funding from that company if you sign on to do this. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of also a little reason, I think, why people do it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was one thing that kind of made me not like it, is in one of the articles it talked about how some countries were told that if they didn't ratify this, they would lose funding. And so I just thought that was, I don't know, a coercive tactic to get them to do what the UN wanted, even if they didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like a lot of governmental things do that, though.
Politics.
Whether it's good or bad, yeah, I don't know. It's politics. It's politics. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so how did Kelly's presentation help your understanding of the ecological approach to family advocacy?
I think just the realization that there's so much you can do around your community. Like, how many parents would have thought about the problem of the schoolyard not being fenced in, or thought about even approaching it? Like, they might think this is stupid and just be frustrated with it, but she did something about it. So I think and even with the park, she called the city officials. She did something about it. So just showing us that there's really a lot that we can do in our community that can make a difference. We don't have to go to the UN. We don't have to go to state conventions. We can start in our community. And she said that after she did the playground thing, like put the fence in, that places all over Arizona were doing that. And whether that was because of the example of that school or because other parents were starting to notice that too, it made a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it, but I agree. I just liked how you could start in your community, start small, and it could make a big difference. So, I mean, exactly what you said. I don't know what else to add on.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add on is just, I guess it helped me understand better that policies and like agendas on a global level, they really do affect even like families in your home. Do you know what I mean? It kind of trickles down. Everything kind of affects. It's not like, I don't know, it's not stagnant. It like keeps moving, it keeps changing. Everything affects each other. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something also that I picked up on, and something, I forget what it's called. It's like the C one. So like in the book that we learned about. Like culture, oh wait, that's not it, sorry, let me find it. You know what I'm talking about, right? The chrono system?
Yes.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Like, it just kind of made me think of how, I don't know, it talks a lot about, like, the times, and how, like, if you think back, like, 100 years ago, and, I don't know, I guess I was kind of, like, melanging all of the ideas, but, like, the rights of the children, like, if that would have been like laid on the table, it would have been like shut down, like in a heartbeat. But just because of like a whole like bunch of different things going on, like different changes, like I feel like advocating for like rights is like such a huge deal that now it's like, I don't know, because of like our different experiences that you normally wouldn't think of, like, I don't know, like the economic depression and like the like gay rights movement and all of those things affect like children. And it's just weird to think that like just the time that we're in affects the children. I don't know. I guess I kind of I understood a lot of the other stuff, because it's true how much like even someone's culture, someone's ethnicity, someone's like parents and their peers, you know, they all affect children. But then for me, looking at a wider picture of like just the times that we're in, like that's kind of, I don't know, I guess I never really thought of it. Okay. What system or level do you personally feel would be the most difficult to advocate, and why?
I think for me it would probably be the microsystem level, so like with your coworkers or with people that you interact with every day, because if they don't like what you're advocating for, like you might lose that connection. I know that like at my work, the 4 people I work with all the time, none of them are LDS, and they make it very clear that they know what LDS people stand for, and they are not LDS. So I feel like I would have a hard time advocating to them because they've made it clear that that's not their standpoint. And I want to keep that working business relationship with them. Like I have to work with them, so I can't make it hostile or whatever, you know.
Mine was, I think, sorry, can you hear me over my daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that macro systems for me would be the most difficult to advocate for because they're so large and broad. It's also things that people feel really passionate about, like your culture, religion, politics. These are all things that you kind of invest part of yourself into. So when somebody tells you that you're doing it wrong or you're not doing it the best way that you could be, you kind of get offended by that and you kind of get on the defensive. So I think that's a little bit hard to advocate for. And also that there's a lot of subsystems that make up all of these. So, I mean, to change something, it takes a lot of effort. And to change something on a global level, you can't really do it just by yourself. It really has to be a group of people. So that was mine.
Yeah, so I didn't hear the question, that's why I was like pausing. I had to run off for a second. But yeah, I agree. Now that I'm reading the question, I think I would say the Nisa macro system. I think that's the one. Yeah, because it's some things that people they're very passionate about, like you mentioned. I don't know, I feel like I'm repeating like what you just said, but passionate about like religion, politics, and that's something that I always learn that you don't it's something that you don't bring to the table. It's not like a conversation you just want to talk about with anybody because people are so, I don't want to say hard-headed about, but they're just not open to hearing other people's views sometimes. So I think that would be difficult.
Yeah, that's really funny because I feel like the macro system is kind of like, I feel like that's like something I would like. But honestly, like for me, I feel like the like just the basic micro system would be the hardest. I mean, I don't know, just on like a smaller level. I mean, just looking at like media, I feel like you can't super change media. Obviously you can, but I feel like that would just be a lot harder for me than even advocating for like, I don't know, like something in like social services or like ethnicity or race, or religion. Like I feel like, I don't know, those are kind of like places where I would thrive. But then like when you get to the smaller ones, those would be actually harder for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think for me though, I have a harder time like I worry sometimes what people think, or I don't know, it sounds so lame and pathetic, but like I'm not really good at explaining myself, or I think it was this class where we talked about communication and like storytelling, or even like trying to share like your views or whatever. Like it's harder for people to communicate that, but like they know exactly what they want. So that's why I say that, because it's harder for me to communicate like what I believe and then also defend it. So it's like obviously I'm struggling explaining myself in this conversation. So like I don't know, that's why I think it'd be harder for me personally.
Yeah. Okay. What system do you personally feel is the most important to advocate, and why?
For me, sorry, was anybody else talking?
Go for it.
Okay. So I think that for me that the most important level would probably be the microsystems. You kind of have to start, at home, in your home, with your own family, within your own community. And then I think that opens doors to get to higher up places. And I also think that you kind of have to set an example, too. And in places such as, like, what's one of the areas of microsystems? Is it media? Yeah. It plays, like, such a big role in our society, not just, like, with us, but even, like, younger kids. You know what I mean? They're learning things so much quicker than we ever did. And I think that it's up to us to kind of be their advocate and to kind of I don't know, protect them from things that they don't really need to learn right then. I don't know. Do you guys get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Okay.
point.
Yeah, I would have to say I agree as far as, like, I don't know. It's hard for me because I feel like in a perfect world, the microsystem is the most important to advocate for because it kind of makes that, like, foundation, that strong foundation that you need. But at the same time, I feel like there's so much, like, I don't know, like, family is one, and there's so many, like, broken families and people who don't teach those things that, like, the bigger systems almost have to, like, make up for it. And I feel like that's kind of the hard part because, like, in a perfect world, those smaller ones should be taking care of that. But I feel like not. So I guess it still would be, like, one of the most important to advocate for. But I feel like it's almost like people have lost faith in advocating for it, and so they go for, like, the bigger ones to try and fix the little ones.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I
any
don't
other
know.
comments on that?
Yeah, I don't know what else to say because both of your points are pretty good. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence too about that one. Now that you both shared your opinion, like, I don't know what to say about that one. So.
Okay, well, I can do a summary if
Awesome.
that's what I do next?
Yep.
Okay. So on our first question, what were our impressions? I think for our consensus, most of us found that there were good and bad to it. And I don't know, just that there's a lot of, like, I don't know, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, and we're kind of on the fence, I feel like, as the consensus goes. From the results of the question number 2 about other countries, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like our consensus was that, like, kind of here we have a lot of rights and those are kind of taken care of, but in a lot of other countries it does a lot of good. It does, I think in Uganda you were saying vaccinations and stuff like that were kind of more put on, like, this is important and we need it. So for the most part, I feel like we had a consensus that it was pretty good for other countries to boost those rights of the children. From the presentation, how did we say the presentation? It helped just because it kind of showed us how, like, all of those things are kind of connected, and you don't have to like go to the UN to be able to advocate for these things. There's lots of, like, little ways to do it on all the different types of levels. You can advocate for it. And then what system? I feel like that one's kind of a personal question. I don't know if we came to a consensus on what we personally feel would be the most difficult to advocate for. I guess we had 2 out of 4 say the macro system. So we'll go with that one as our consensus. And then what system or level do you personally feel is the most important? From what I understand, we think the microsystem is the most important because it's that base. Yes? Sound good?
Yeah. Great job.
Yeah,
Great
that's
job.
good.
Good.
Okay.
Good
All right,
job,
well,
everyone.
have
Have
a
a
lovely
happy Valentine's weekend.
You too.
day.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.